Alright, this is Fullest House, first edition, where we are playing Vaettiheim. It is turn 35, and we are in the middle of a war, as I recall, although more in the raiding phase of it. Yes, we have some transformations. Okay, you don't get to see the result, I guess. Or I think last time it told us when we died, so I'm assuming it was successful in this case. We bring in some patrollers. We'll take a look and see what we got, if anything. We finished our Construction 6 research, which may be a little questionable, but there are plenty of boosters there that we want to get a hold of, because the planning for this build was not perfect. We do a bunch of site searching, none of which works out for us. Okay, we expanded our blood hunting operation, so we are now blood hunting in 3 provinces. Yeah, it's very upset. I think they're very upset everywhere. Yeah, of course. We'll have to take a look at the unrest levels, because we're definitely getting, quite a bit of variation. Now, I mean, granted, right, this is 4, and this is where we're getting the most, but it's like we have 3 blood hunters here and only one blood hunter here, but it's pretty close in terms of results. And I mean, there's some randomness, so it might just be some jitter, but it might also, we'll have to take a look at the unrest levels. And then we have some raids, and then we get attacked by Pangea. So we're mostly raiding Archocephaly, sadly. It is what it is, but we don't really have anything against them. They're pretty much dead. They're in the way, and so this is our siege strength that cannot hide, and so there's the guys that are just throwing the boulders, and then our cap-only mages also cannot hide, just skelly spam with some giants. Hopefully we don't lose anybody. It's not ideal using them as like the leading force of the attack, but this way, like, the rest of our army actually is present in this province, but I just chose to sneak them since I didn't think there was any likelihood that we were going to be fighting a battle, and it's like, well, if we can hide our army, like, why not? Really, the only reason to not is if this gets jumped on by, like, a huge force, and then I have the rest of my army in the same province, but not present in the battle. That would suck. So there's some danger here, but I did gauge the situation correctly, and we take this province without loss, so that is nice. And then I think this is a legitimate raid, yeah, with our twice-born mages, and this is where Pangea's army had moved to and moved out of. I wasn't expecting them to hang out, and they did not. And, I bailed out of that battle, but they do get a centaur commander, so, okay, our skeletons look like they managed to take care of it, so that is good news. And then we have another raid against Arco. This one, yeah, kind of just threw the kitchen sink at it. This is near one of our forests where we've been recruiting hags, and it's also on the border with Gath. I was a little bit worried that Gath might throw something in, right, to do a little bit of vulturing. This is more than we strictly need. That said, this is a decent chunk of Bakemono, and none of our stuff can really actually see in the dark. We have no sacreds here. Yeah, and we're not going to do great in melee against them. We could actually lose this. Like, here's the HP route coming. We do have somebody set to attack rear, I think, but yeah, we just got routed. Ouch. So that raid didn't work out. I'll have to take a look at that again and see. I think I was just thinking, like, well, there's probably not a lot of province defense here, so didn't really put enough effort into that script. So that is sad, especially too because this is on the border with a couple factions. We actually managed to lose one of our casters, an expensive caster too, who was not twice-born. So, like, yeah, and we lose the hearse. In fact, let's just double check, because the hearse, I gave him a frost brand. He's the one who's supposed to be attacking rear. Like, yeah, come on, buddy. He's got a mage here that's gonna buff him up, hopefully with like body ethereal. I really thought that, the body ethereal, the mage, she does herself first, of course, but there's another body ethereal, if I recall correctly. Yeah, see, there it is. All right, and he got the protection off. No, he chose to cast protection not on himself, but on one of his bodyguards, it looks like. Did he cast it on the mage? I think he may have cast it on the mage square. Nope, doesn't look like he cast it on the mage square either. So I'm guessing that he just missed, because protection is not the self buff, it's the one square buff, because I was thinking, well, let's get the bodyguards as well. So that may explain what happened. We may have just not been fast enough. The other thing too is, like, mystics are pretty dangerous. No, he managed to kill the mystic, but then, yeah, so they had some extra leadership, and yeah, and he just routed. So we just didn't have enough of a front line. But yeah, definitely a very painful, well, I don't know, very painful, but a painful raid definitely for us. Some unexpected events. We lose some Dominion. That's kind of sad. We're trying to get Dominion here, so this is actually a little worse than normal. We buy some gems, so this is actually good news. Yes, and the arena deathmatch, which we definitely did not submit anyone to. So let's take a look, see if there's anything good. Somebody risking an Earth Gnome, which they no doubt got for free. And then Xibalba sending in just a mostly dead bat. I guess the Feeble Mind comes from the arena. So it's just a bat with a chest wound and a stone dagger. My money is on the Earth Gnome. I will say, like, the vanilla arena with like no mods does generate like some really unusual battles. So it can be kind of interesting, right, to just see like, well, if we take different types of garbage, what is the strongest garbage out there? So Pythium doing like sort of like low but not quite garbage commitment. Yeah, this even pushes like medium commitment. So these are probably items that they got for free and they just slapped it on like one of their serpent lords, who is sacred but not a priest, so you won't be able to bless. Of course, then again, there's no spell casting because of the people's arena. So yeah, and so he manages to take out the Earth Gnome. The Earth Gnomes, of course, can regenerate, but this guy does enough damage with that weapon for it to not be a problem. Marignon's submitting someone, maybe a scout, maybe something real. An assassin, interesting. It looks like possibly he's been set up specifically for this deathmatch. And he's been given the classic lifelong protection and nothing else. That is pretty standard kit for a human assassin. And of course, what does Raga submit? Basically as the Yedden, just their bread and butter, certainly in this game, and I suspect, just in general for the nation, although can do other stuff. That said, like, lifelong protection, so powerful, right? Because I think he was probably given some holds. If he had been set to, like, attack immediately, might have actually won the battle, because, like, certainly could have sniped, just the lone human commander, but, just can't kill the imps quick enough. They killed the rider. Now they're working on the Griffin. It takes a while to kill the Griffin. You can see the Griffin has a lot of hit points, which is a little deceptive because one of these units with two shapes. So the original shape just has human level hit points, but the Griffin itself, 44 hit points. Quite a few. But still, can't handle infinite imps. So Marignon comes away with that. I think Marignon might actually win this. We'll see what... Yeah, Joman just sends like a regular commander, no kit. It's definitely going to be the lifelong protection. We could have done a lifelong protection. Dang it, I should have done a lifelong protection. That's a decent amount of kit, to risk. That's 40 blood slaves, which probably for Marignon is less of a big deal because I'm imagining that they're a more competent blood hunter than someone really kind of trying to do it for the first time, not doing fantastic. So we don't have a ton of blood slaves. We've seen the Serpent Lord, of course. He is decently scary, and he will be able to kill imps, but one of his issues... Actually, he has less encumbrance than I thought, but I don't think... Yeah, he's got no reinvigoration. So eventually the imps will put him to sleep. He's not super killy, so yeah, that's how this goes. And yeah, if you build a fellow for the deathmatch, I think really like lifelong protection probably wins most vanilla arena deathmatches. You never know when someone's going to commit something real. But yeah, he gets the champion's headband, so that's cool. Not sure if that's going to help that assassin, but, it won't hurt him, certainly. And then we get patrolled out by Satis somewhere. Oh, this is actually worth looking at. Is this another fort that we try to go on top of? I don't think so. Yeah, I think this is just somewhere random. Or maybe it's a fort that we weren't aware of. So let's see, is he going to show us any research? Probably not. Not actually even sure. Yeah, so he's got some of his Deathcasters here. Have we seen their bless? Yeah, it's been a while. I do like the natural protection +5 on the lizards, since that stacks with their already existing natural protection. And yeah, I don't see much in the way of mage support here, but also this seems like a bit too large of a force to just be patrolling randomly on top of one of their forts, so not actually sure what this is about. But yeah, nothing too crazy here. But then again, Satis has done a decent job, I think, of kind of hiding like what they're up to. And, speaking of, we lose a scout, so we'll send more scouts into their territory. I'm not too worried. From the game chat that I saw, it looked like they were fighting with Atlantis at the moment. So yeah, I'll catch you guys after the cut. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. I guess let's cover what we can't really see on the map first, although we can can see the reason for it on the map, and that is Raga. So, talked before about like maybe setting up a coalition for Raga, and that they're a big problem and they're going to have to be dealt with, which I think is probably a relatively familiar beat in late age in general. And so, went and I actually was approached by a player who was, also concerned about Raga, and one thing led to another, and turns out there's already an entire Discord server dedicated to Raga's downfall. So I'm not going to name names, not even of like the nations that are in there, because, that's not how you roll when you're in conspiracies. But I will admit to the existence of a conspiracy. It is quite large, and I would venture to say that, Raga has no friends in this game, and I think they have really only themselves to blame for that. Raga is a nation with a target on its back, right? Because everybody knows that it's a powerful nation. But from my limited scouting, it looks like this player has done absolutely nothing to try to dampen the effects of that, and frankly has been, shall I say, impatient in the general chat, which I have not been thrilled about. And so yeah, all those things combined, and this is the result. So there's still some discussion about whether the go time is turn 37 or turn 38. So we'll see. We'll get that confirmed shortly. But yeah, in theory, pretty soon Raga is going to have a lot of problems. Now, talk is cheap, and we are possibly going to be one of the people contributing to that. We absolutely will attack, like on the agreed upon schedule, but in what strength and where and how is yet to be determined. Like certainly our main army is almost assuredly to still be engaged on like turn 37 and probably still on turn 38. So, we're not going to be in a position to take out this, main stack, and we're really not going to be in a position to take any forts immediately, but we can start raiding, and we may start raiding immediately. This is Raga's capital, so, it's going to be a bit of a hot potato situation about like who ends up actually dealing with this stack, because I doubt, at least as far as the Zietans are concerned, the Flying Sacreds, he's only really going to have one group of this size. So, only one person, hopefully, is going to, bear the brunt of that fighting. Ideally, they'll take it out and not lose to it. If they lose to it badly, then, maybe multiple of us will be seeing that stack. And while I have to say I don't love the bless that's on them, it does have like the full elemental resistances. There's going to be no shortcut really to getting rid of these guys, other than the fact that they have pretty low magic, in fact really low for Sacred's magic resistance. They just have, when they have the human rider on board, it's just a standard 10, and then once the human rider dies and it's just the griffin, it goes up to 12, but 12 still isn't very high. So to that end, we're switching our research just a little bit. We're still going to get Alteration 7, and we might be able to get Fog Warriors, although they do have magic weapons, so that's going to be somewhat useful, but probably not like battle winning. But then we'll also get Mass Protection, which I think will help a lot. I don't think there was a ton of strength on that bless, though the Griffins are pretty strong anyway. So, while Alteration 7 is going to be useful for us, I'm actually not sure it was the right choice at this point in the game. But anyway, the switch that we're making is we're going to go up to Thaumaturgy 5. We're not a great astral power, so that will give us Soul Slay, and we'll absolutely bring some astral casters that we feel like we can risk, and we'll get some soul slaying in, and we can also build up a larger communion by including some blood casters, because no matter how you enter a communion, it's all just one big communion. But the other thing, of which we have quite a bit more of, right, Nature 2, that's absolutely something we have plenty of, and Charm Animal should work on the riderless griffins. And the griffins are actually much tankier than the riders themselves, right? We've seen riders die, so if we take a large battle against Raga, we'll be able to kill some riders, absolutely, and we should be able to charm some of those griffins. Which, if rumors are true, asked a few questions here and there, it sounds like usually you do not get to keep mounts that you charm that way, but apparently Raga's griffins are an exception, the exception. So we'll see if that's true. I think, it'll be worth it just for science, also for hilariousness. And then also just because I think it's going to be unexpected and hilarious, and will be pretty useful. Even if we don't get to keep them, it's going to be very useful during the battle, right? Because the griffins are pretty dangerous. So if we can get, even a decent chunk, 10, 12 griffins or something on our side, that's a pretty major swing. So, pushing our blood out again, probably a mistake. I mean, like I said, I knew I was going to be slow getting the blood up. I just really don't know what I'm doing, so I'm not like in a rush to get there. But I do think we're, starting to hit the point in the game where it's like, all right, really should be turning, the blood on. That said, Thaumaturgy 5 is going to be useful for us for the rest of the game. So, I don't hate the detour. So anyway, that's kind of the upcoming plan, and will probably keep us pretty occupied. Obviously, right, Pangea is still present. I don't think I mentioned it, but Archocephaly was actually eliminated, and I think this was a Dominion kill, probably because there's a freaking throne that has been claimed by someone else that's in their cap circle. That's going to be pushing just a ton of Dominion against you. This is a completely unacceptable situation, in my opinion. Archocephaly probably should have just broken the nap, i.e. not even respected it, because this is not, I don't know. If I saw this situation, right, and somebody was like, oh yeah, that player, they're a nap breaker, and it's like, yeah, but somebody had taken a throne and forted it in my cap circle, it's like, yeah, okay, that's what? So, they probably just weren't really in a position to be able to fight Raga, so I get where they're coming from, but yeah, that's a lot of Dominion push. And that is kind of unfortunate, right, because now I think, if I'm remembering correctly, all of their units just disappear. So this is now an empty fort, which in some ways is actually kind of good for us. And I guess this army just is kind of lacking on the siege strength, because this fort is still not cracked. It is a citadel, at least. Now, also, I don't know, do the troops provide their siege defense this turn and then disappear? I don't know, the mysteries of the turn order. But we do want these Yedens to crack this fort quickly and then ideally just go away, right? Again, the Yeden hot potato. And the potato is a little too close to me and to our large stack for comfort. So the sooner they finish their business here and feel they need to, fly off somewhere else, if I was Raga and, kind of continuing the way that they've been operating, Agartha would probably be the next logical target, right? You've got the same situation, right? A throne in their cap circle. Agartha just fought, fairly major battle against Man and took some casualties. They're not that big. So Agartha would probably be the next target. So hopefully the Zedens move over in that direction. And then when everybody attacks all at the same time, because of course the coalition would never fail in any way, shape, or form, he'll just, have other things to worry about, other than, a couple Wolf Brother groups nibbling at the edges of his territory. We may also hold off, I've moved these raiders out, but they're really kind of just more scouting. Because again, I think if we threaten Raga's capital, we're going to get that hot potato. So we're going to focus more on trying to pick up, the Archocephalian territory. But of course, I have gotten ahead of myself just a little bit because, Pangea still exists. So that is definitely a thing that we're going to have to deal with. And it's kind of interesting. Pangea decided to split. I haven't seen too many splits from this player before. So I was not expecting that. I do I like it. Taking more provinces a turn is good. This particular split, though, does strike me as being pretty dangerous, although they don't know that, we have a giant army here. So, it may look a lot safer than it actually is. Right, but now, it has one retreat route onto this fort, but is otherwise, somewhat cut off, and, this is not really large enough to be dangerous to an army, but also probably a bit too large. If we look at the report, okay, the scout report's just high. 26 is not bad, so this is actually not a bad raiding force. So this is still going to be the majority of his army, which we didn't actually see. And it is kind of looking like, he's just going to march at us, which would be ideal. And we are going to risk a foul vapors trap, which I'm not completely confident about. But, considering that I was thinking that he split off 40, I really should have looked at this turn is rolled. So we have to live with it. But, I was thinking he'd split off more than he had. But still, this army is going to be very vulnerable to foul vapors, and it's just a question of can we generate enough crap to get in the way while we poison them? And I think the answer is yes. In terms of actual troops that we're bringing, though, 18. I talked about how with the main army, I was a little bit worried about our Rimvetti getting surrounded and destroyed and overwhelmed. And obviously this is a lot fewer Rimvetti. So we are doing a ton of summoning, right? So we're going to bring in skeletons. We're going to bring in imps. We're also, of course, doing quickness. We're going to try to make these Rimvetti, absolutely disgusting. Wooden warriors, right? There's the foul vapors. We're also going to try to throw out some sleep clouds, which combos really well with poison damage, because most damage will wake you up from sleep. not poison damage. So we got quite a few sleep clouds, and then, more skeletons and all that kind of stuff, mixing in a little bit of Frozen Heart. We did also, I think, Province Defense PD dump, yeah, just a little bit. So the PD is also going to die to the poison, but it's going to take them a second, so they will definitely participate in the slowing them down. But we may not have enough chaff here, so we'll see. This could be fairly significant mage losses, although at least, two of these are twice-borns, and one of them turned into a bear, which is kind of cool, but again, that low magic resistance is rough. That said, that's the reason that this, caster can get here, Map Move 22. The Veti do not have that normally. So you definitely get some advantages from these chassis, but then you also get the downsides, right? This caster is no longer stealthy, right? If you're a giant bear, you're not stealthy. So anyway, at least some of these casters, right, are twice-born, so it's not as bad, but most of them are not. So this is a lot of mages to be risking. Also, we'll see. He may not come to this province. But if they do, fingers crossed that the war will basically be over, which will be good because we discussed at length why we're probably going to be busy pretty soon. Also, Marignon did mention oh hey, sorry it's been taking me a little while. Hopefully there's still some stuff left, and I was like, yeah, no, you still have time. Go for the capital, all that good stuff. Which again, giving up a capital is rough. The other thing too, we see some evidence of it. Yeah, we can see a Marignon flag all the way down here. So I believe that, here's Falegra. Yeah, so Falegra is absolutely getting attacked by Marignon. So they have been busy, right? I was kind of wondering, it's well, what are if you're just taking your time with Kalem, what's going on? Well, they were eating Falegra is what's going on. So, no idea how well it's going, but Falegra was really small, so probably pretty well. So anyway, they have not been idle, right? So if they also take Pangea, that'll actually leave them with more capitals than we have, right? They'll have, theirs, Falegra's, Kalem's, and Pangea's to our 3, assuming we take Abyssia. But of course, we're going to roll it immediately into trying to take Arcocephaly. And then, hopefully this will also, give them a border, another reason to kind of leave this Raga territory alone, because then Marignon will end up with a border with Raga, and, maybe they'll want to crack at the capital, and maybe they'll get the Zayden hot potato. So probably not, because, Marignon just won't be able to move quickly enough, and probably won't have the forces in place to want to risk tangling. But, if they decide that they don't want to deal with Raga, I think Raga is going to be attacked, even if the coalition doesn't go off immediately in great strength. There are enough members, and it's definitely in everyone's interest to make sure Raga disappears, that I think Raga is going to be really busy. So their capital will be on offer at some point, and I think we're going to be in a pretty good position to grab that as well. So we'll be able to keep pace and or ahead of Marignon. Which doesn't have any particular relevance, other than I know that they're a decent player and we have some eyesight on them, so just kind of using them again as a yardstick. We are also going to retry our failed raid here, so I'm not really sure how this works. I think it's just going to be empty now, because I don't think that these provinces end up with province defense anymore because they're neutral. So we'll see. That would be good. We're just going to send in some Wolf Riders, our same fellow, a little bit of Swarm, some Body Ethereal stuff, all the normal kind of things. There's a decent chance that we bump into, whatever Gath is going to throw in, because Gath might try to go after this. So this is really more to deal with anything that Gath sends in, and then one of our Wolf Brother groups is going to try to pick this up, may bump into Raga, but, that's fine if we do. So yeah, I think that more or less covers it. We do see, speaking of Gath, they seem to be massing for another assault on Patala's capital. So we have a few more turns, 3 more turns for our scrying pool. And we're going to have a lot of scouts nearby. But of course, I think Patala is patrolling pretty strongly just about every turn. So, if we move a scout in and it doesn't get taken over that turn, then we pretty much lose that scout immediately. So hopefully, they'll be able to take it before we lose our scrying spell, because I just kind of want to see the battle. And then we can also see that Xibalba their capital is sieged and cracked by Falegra. So that is part of, we saw also they were being attacked by the Merfolk Nation, and they seemed kind of down to it. And this is, probably a lot of the reason why they are. Although Falegra may not be able to finish it off. The fact that it's cracked, they probably will storm. But, with Marignon coming in on them, they have other concerns now, definitely. So that's it. And then I think the only other thing, yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it, but we did hear through the grapevine that Cetis is fighting with Atlantis. And so, yeah, Atlantis probably isn't long for this world just because, we haven't, this is where we lost our scouts. So there's a large Cetisian army here, and they're probably engaged in finishing off Atlantis would be my guess. Although we still don't actually know exactly where Atlantis' capital is. So that may not be 100% true, although I think Atlantis is also subbed out, and that's usually a sign that things, didn't go so well, which is kind of crazy because like Atlantis and Lemuria are probably considered some of the stronger like late age nations to my limited knowledge. And Cetis, late age Cetis especially, is kind of considered one of the more weaker nations, right? I mean, that's why he's got the dream of not being eaten. But like, not only did he not get eaten, he took out both Lemuria, and now is looking like he's on track to take out Atlantis as well. So it is a lot about like who is piloting the nation. So yeah, I think that covers turn 35.